Many people who are new to the world of Bigfoot research might not realize, but there's a lot of disparities between the theories of just what Bigfoot is. Now, I want to break down some of the key differences of 3 of those most popular theories. The first possibility is what's called the flesh and blood theory, that Bigfoot is basically just an undiscovered primate species. The next theory is what's called the relic hominid theory, which takes a cue from these encounters that detail human-like qualities, much like Neanderthal. Now, the final branch of Bigfoot research explores this idea of high strangeness. This includes linking theories of Bigfoot to UFOs, possibility of shape-shifting, cloaking, and even the idea that these things could be interdimensional beings. It's this variance in the possibilities that makes Bigfoot research so compelling, because there's so much more to learn and explore.
You learn from every single expedition, and I've been able to witness some really intimate moments in the life of wild animals, where I'm reminded that we're not dissimilar. And one of the ones that really struck me involved gorillas and how caring they are for each other. There was an old silverback that was really on his way out, and there were 2 of his sons sort of as rivals wanting that position. And yet the females were really calming the situation, waiting for the male who could not travel as quickly as the rest of the group, and never, ever leaving him behind. That, to me, struck me as something that we see in our own families where we care for our elders. In order to prove the existence of a species, you have to collect DNA to have irrefutable evidence. So I always carry a tranquilizer gun with me on my expeditions, because a tranquilizer gun enables you to capture an animal without harming it and then being able to release it back into the wild. Historically, explorers would go out and shoot an animal, kill it, and then bring it back to have it as evidence. We know what that does to the balance of nature, and we know better than to do that now. So a tranquilizer gun is a way for me to be able to collect a blood sample, tissue sample, measurements, weights, all of the documentation and evidence that we need in order to prove the existence of a new species. And most importantly, do so without harming the animal.
I became obsessed with the whole Bigfoot thing the very first time I watched the Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967. And my first actual research was in Montana. I was in high school. I took cameras and flashlights and some casting material, and I went out and did actual legitimate research. I thought it through. I mapped out a plan. I canvassed an area. I looked for footprints, hair, everything. It was just like what you see today, but very much more amateurish. I was looking for something that would change the world.
Something that most people don't realize is really a crucial part of an expedition, especially when you're trying to look for a rare and an elusive animal, are the local stories. I cannot tell you how many times I have walked sometimes 10 hours a day for months on end and not seen or found the animal that I'm looking for. And then I walk into a village and I talk to the village elder and the locals, who then share their eyewitness reports and lead me to the very place where I then find and able to document that animal. And we're super grateful to people who basically have more to lose than to gain by sharing their stories and their insights with us, because it really helps further along our investigations.
The pursuit of proof requires evidence, and lots of it. And in the study of Bigfoot, the largest database that we have is footprints. Researchers have been collecting casts and studying trackways since the 50s. And until recently, the evidence was always collected by making plaster casts of the footprints. But a new technology is emerging, and it's changing the way that we collect evidence in the field. The 3D scanner creates a three-dimensional model of a footprint, allowing pinpoint accuracy of its length, width, depth, even showing changes in the curvature of the foot. These 3D models can be permanently archived for cross-referencing by future researchers. Now, this hasn't replaced plaster casting as the gold standard, but it is moving us towards seeing the bigger picture of what's actually going on out there in the woods.
Growing up, my dad taught me the survival skills to know that if I was in the forest, I'd be fine. I'm gonna give you a couple pieces of advice to be successful in the forest. Number one, if you're ever gonna go into the forest, always let someone know where you're going. Make sure you check in when you leave and you check in when you get back in. Number two, always go out in pairs. Do you sleep at all?
I got a little bit.
For the show, I have a cameraman, and that gives me a lot of comfort knowing that if something happens to me, I've got backup right in front of me. The last thing, bring a means of how to protect yourself from the elements. If it rains, if it snows, you can get into hypothermia and put yourself in a situation that is highly dangerous.
We got to get out of the open right now, get into some cover.
Play it safe. There's no sense in taking risks that are unnecessary.
The thing that made me want to start doing field research was a magazine article that I read about the most endangered primates in the world. And it wasn't the ones with the beautiful photographs that captured my attention. It was actually the line drawings, because here they were on the verge of extinction and they had never even been photographed. That really captured my attention. I knew then and there that that was what I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to. And for now more than 2 decades, I have been in search of rare and elusive primates on the verge of extinction that have not even ever been documented.